we really have to understand our prospect on a different level than anything else to gain that emotional connection and really understand what their needs and wants are, their lifestyle, more than just what they need in a home, but what's important to them in the area and the neighborhood, and really getting to know not only, like I said, their needs, but them as a person.
I think we should remove all of the chairs, right?
I'm
think about
with
it,
you.
because people come in and
Yes.
I'm just going to keep typing. I'm the assistant manager. I'm going to act like I'm on the phone. No, you should be up. Like, let's go, right there.
So speaking of bad shop scores, I have to imagine you've seen some bad, but also some great. How do you measure success? I have an answer for you. Secret shop them.
Absolutely.
We are joined, John and I,
Or lack
thrilled,
thereof.
or lack thereof. John and I are thrilled to host Kris Wegener from Business Observations. Kris, thank you so much. We finally locked you down.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, of course, we have a litany of questions for you. Kris, of course, a fellow data junkie like John and I and the rest of the Mark Taylor family. Tell us a little bit about Business Observations before we dive in, though.
Well, Business Observations is a national secret shopping company. We do secret shops mainly for apartments, but we also do Mattress Firm and Ashley Furniture and some big outlets like that. We're very specific on measuring the performance and success so that we can drill down to the data and really define where our strengths and weaknesses are.
So for those that aren't familiar, can you define what a secret shop is?
Absolutely. It's when somebody goes into, in the apartment world, we go in as a prospect or pretend to be a prospect and ask the same questions that a prospect would so that we can understand the performance of the leasing associate and the community. What else is going on in the community? We specialize in video shops, so we're seeing a little bit of everything, not just what the leasing consultant says and does.
So we were just talking off camera that you and John met prior to John becoming a leasing agent for Mark Taylor.
Yes, Johnny and I go way back.
2001,
Yeah.
almost 25 years.
2001. Wow.
Yeah.
I have to share this as well. So Kris, of course, through the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, a huge piece of education, providing data just across the entire industry on what we're successful with when it comes to our leasing activities and what we need to work on, right? And it's not specific by property management company, but it's the entire industry specific to Arizona. How did you even think of creating Business Observations?
Well, I was the very first director of sales and training for Mark Taylor, and we used secret shops as a tool to understand our performance. The company we were using went away, and I had an idea, and that's when Business Observations
That was non-video,
was born.
right? So
it was video back then.
it was, okay.
Yeah, back then it was very archaic. It was almost like a mini VCR, with battery packs. Everything had a battery pack. The microphone, the recording equipment. So we could only use a purse to put it
This
in.
prospect has a
wire going,
And
yeah.
you might be walking like this a little bit. Because
Oh
we're
my
so
gosh, I
heavy.
love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I love it. Well, let's dive in. Thank you again, Kris, for being here. Really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
in our leasing world, especially with the amount of units that have been delivered to Arizona, Phoenix specifically, sales and leasing go hand in hand. Why is that so important in our industry?
Well, I think the main reason it's so important is because we really have to understand our prospect on a different level than anything else. Like, right, if you're selling a cell phone or anything but a home, the level of what we need to understand from our prospect is a lot different. So I think that alone, just the level that we have to take pride or take care with our prospects makes a big difference.
Love it. JC, I'm going to take you back to when you were a leasing agent 45 years ago. Was I accurate on that?
It was black and white.
It was 45?
Yes.
Okay. What has not changed in leasing, going back to when you and I were both leasing agents?
Well, I think it's still about connection and experience.
Right.
So, there's a quote, and I wrote it down from Seth Godin. It's just people do not buy goods and services. They buy relations, stories, and magic. And I think when I first started training, although I know Kris back in the day tried to do her best to help me evolve as a salesperson, I think I was just able to connect and really try to identify the wants and needs of the person sitting across from me. And I think by the end of our tours, mine were usually longer, I would basically have a soft close, like assume sale. Like they're going to sign because we're so connected. This is a great community. They're already They already seeked us out. And I think it was that connectivity, that experience that helped close the deal.
Sure, sure. We talk about how important it is in cultivating relationships. We've mentioned this several times, not just on the podcast, but just in our daily work lives. Understanding the audience you're speaking to, right? How important is that, especially in our industry?
Well, it's very important. I think it goes hand in hand with what John just said, and really understanding our prospects to gain that emotional connection and really understand what their needs and wants are, their lifestyle. More than just what they need in a home, but what's important to them in the area and the neighborhood, and really getting to know not only, like I said, their needs, but them as a person.
And you and I talk about it. I know you do as well, Kris. I mean, what we do in our industry, what brings us the most pride is that we're providing homes for all of our residents, right? It's their home. It's the place where they're going back to every single day, to and from work, after work, before and after work, I should say, right? John, I'm going to ask you this because we talk about never being bigger than the market, being students of the market. How does this, for our leasing agents, for our on-site teams, how important is it for Mark Taylor to contribute to the success of our leasing?
Well, I truly believe knowledge is power. So understanding the fundamentals of the market, understanding where we are. Is it a contractionary market? Is it an expansionary market? And what that means based on your specific submarket. So give you an example, in 2021, our best operational year on record ever in Phoenix. You think about that year, you had so many renters looking for very few available apartments because there was such demand and limited supply, that you had to really understand that from a sales perspective. If someone was there, it was likely they were going to rent whatever you had, which would potentially eliminate concessions or needs to do spoofs or give them, give anything away per se. So understanding the dynamics of that, because it is our fiduciary to maximize the financial potential of the asset. Flip it to today in a market that is vastly oversupplied. There's lots of excess inventory. If someone is calling you, and we know this to be true, if you don't answer that phone call, your chances of closing that person goes from 32% to below 2%, even if you try to call them back.
It's a big gap.
So you want to answer the phone call, right? Because the market's different today. Renters have a myriad of choices. So understanding that from I'll say on-site or centralization platform, you have to understand what's happening in the market to engage the customer differently. Like you need to be hungry. You need to be ready to strike right now to make sure that you're leasing that person if you have their attention. Otherwise, they can go right down the street and rent a unit for the same price or less.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in such a fast-paced world, and with the internet and with so much information at our fingertips, if we're not answering that phone on that first call, we're losing them. They're going to go on to the next one and just keep going until they get that warm person or that personal touch that they're looking for. I also think that it's not only the financial impact with helping leasing, but it's the culture of companies. It's how do our associates feel about working for Mark Taylor? That's a big difference in the performance altogether.
Good point.
Well, I think two things. It ties back to brand. So, if you have a trustworthy brand, I believe we do, you'll be treated right and fairly. So I think that benefits us in this type of environment for sure.
Absolutely. And it's so important. Brand is so important that our leasing associates should be talking about it on their tour and really bringing up Mark Taylor as a brand and what a difference Mark Taylor makes
and I think,
in their overall home.
Right. And when I think from just a data perspective, if you think about a renter today, I believe that renters are far more educated than even the leasing consultants were 10 years ago, or managers, because they have so much information. So we really have to be on our toes and ready to understand the market every day, because it shifts every week, assessing the data excessively to understand what's happening. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on opportunities and lose your LTN and lose occupancy.
Sure.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think our leasing associates have to be powered with knowledge, and not only knowledge about their community, their company, but their competitors. And today we need more and more knowledge, and we have to be comfortable with talking about that knowledge. I think that that's one of the biggest things that might interrupt our flow, is just being comfortable enough with ourselves to ask those difficult questions and invite them to actually start the application process and be a resident in your communities.
Go ahead, John. No.
I'd say one more thing. I know we're dragging this topic out, but
not at all.
If you think about a leasing consultant, they're going to be either powered or burdened with the, I'll say, reputation and review of that asset, right, or company. So if you're a 2.9 star and you give a hell of a presentation, like 5-star presentation, and then that prospect is either doing research prior, usually they don't even show up if that's the case, but let's say they're there and they start to review that. It doesn't matter what you do in that moment. You're really reliant on what's happened in the past. So you really have to focus not only on the sales process, but you have to ensure that you're taking care of the residents once they move in. It's the entire journey. So I think if you looked at, this is just anecdotal, but I bet if you took 100 properties and if you took 50 of those that had 4 stars or higher, and you took 50 that were 3.5 stars or lower, I'm confident the closing percentages are much lower for the bottom 50. And also the traffic or people calling or trying to tour is much lower because of that impact. So you really have to take care of the customer, I think, from first touch all the way through move out, more so than ever.
Absolutely. And there's more first touches. There's more touches along the way. We have to incorporate more touches, more channels with communicating with our prospects and our residents, because that's just how we live today, you know?
True. Sounds like I have a project for my team and I.
The argument would be, what are those touches? Are they human touches? Are they automated touches?
Oh, here we go.
And that's a whole different subject.
Here
Well,
we go.
you know, it is somewhat different, but it also is very much inclusive, because I think as their digital world expands, it just raises the expectations, right, of our prospects and our residents and our employees, our leasing consultants, and our frontline people. So we have to really be clear in our communication and making them feel comfortable with themselves so that they can meet the expectations.
I mean, just consider food service today, and I'll say taxi and or car services. So if you factor in Uber, DoorDash, Uber Eats, go down the list, Grubhub, the amount of technology, the amount of investment in those processes have created such a clean, tight, niche process, right? No one calls Uber Eats to see where their food is.
Right.
No one calls an Uber to see, you can call them.
Right.
You just look on your app and you see them showing up. You see when they leave, you transact, all of those things. So, we always have to, in my mind, we have to think about our processes, our deliverables from that aspect, because that's what people are living in.
Absolutely.
So from a digital world perspective, you're right. We have to make sure that we're aligning with what's happening in those other sectors.
Yes, and what the customer wants, and at the time the customer wants it, because all of that is super important. We all want that that ability to find that additional information, but it really comes back to that personal touch. So we all want the personal touch. We all want the digital touch also. It just varies when we want it, and what part of the journey or the process that we want that personal touch. But it's still there. And I think that you could have a horrible shop score. Maybe the lease consultant didn't do everything that they were supposed to do, but their personality was strong, and there was some passion, and there was some, excitement along the way. That makes a bigger difference than, did you get their phone number?
So speaking of bad shop scores, I have to imagine you've seen some bad, but also some great.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Of course, over the years, we've been doing this for over 20 years. We've seen some awesome scores, some multiple 100% scores in 1 year. 2023 and 2024, our performance took a dive, and we just weren't doing that well.
As an industry.
As an industry, absolutely, yes, yeah. I've seen negative scores in a shop score, and that was with a tour, because we're deducting scores from shops or questions and answers. So
for not asking certain questions.
Never in my history have I seen a negative score in performance. But yes, the soft skills that we're talking about, that really grow that personal touch, using their name, talking about Mark Taylor as a brand, just connecting and really understanding the needs and wants. That's what is going to progress the sale.
Would you mind giving us maybe 2 or 3 key questions that you would think would be standard and during a tour? Give me like 2 or 3 of them.
Well, first and foremost, I think you just, hi, how are you? Let's just start with some, getting to know you.
Yeah.
My name is Kris. What's your name? How's your day going? That kind of thing. And, ease them as well as ease themselves, so that they, again, are comfortable with asking those difficult questions. I think that it's important to explain and educate the closing process and what it takes to live at the community right from the beginning. So start asking questions to determine what their level of knowledge is, and then always invite them to live there.
What pro tips do you have going back to your leasing days?
I think, I'll back into what Kris said. So, as an industry, we became horrible at leasing in 23 and 24 post-COVID,
Yes.
right? Because we became really lazy. We had doors locked.
Yeah.
2021 was the best year on record, so you could just basically put a unit online and rent it. You didn't have to do a whole lot of anything. So we had to come out of that coma. And it's just like kids that weren't at school. It's just, we had to kind of resurface our traditional, and we had a full series dedicated to that from a training perspective, leasing excellence, because we had to get our teams, our leasing consultants back into that groove. And I think if you think about it now, my biggest takeaway today is that I feel like leasing consultants that struggle most often don't ask for the close. They don't ask for money. And I don't know if it's just I'm afraid of rejection. I was never afraid to, hey, let's get back in the day, get your checkbook out, but let's apply today. Let's start the process. So I feel like that element of, I don't want to create any rejection and feel bad. Well, no. It's like cold calling. You call 100 people. I used to do it.
Yeah.
You hope that 3 answer, and you hope you close 1.
Well, if you look
But you
at a
gotta
different
ask.
perspective, it's not really rejection. It's just a fact-finding journey. It's a process. So you might run into some concerns along the way, but you just have to resolve those. And
No
keep going.
starts the negotiation, as Kris Voss would say. Yes.
Right.
I love it. So if I'm going to ask this to both of you, what is the most common mistake that we're seeing now, 24 into 25?
Well, from my perspective, our tours are boring. There's just not a lot of personality. There's not a lot of oomph out there. And we're not inviting them to apply. We're doing a very good job of explaining how to apply and explaining, how to use the website as a tool.
Right.
But we're not asking or inviting them to live there.
Do you see anything different from our viewpoint, Mark Taylor?
I would say that engaging with a level of energy and uniqueness around a tour is important. If you just go through the motions, and you've seen this in years past where, the seasoned leasing consultant or two would normally have 20 or 25 tours a week. New person comes in, guess who gets 45 tours? The new person, right? Because they don't want a tour.
Right.
But I think it's about creating that unique connection, creating an experience, and really getting them to buy into the whole ecosystem. Like, this is a community for you based on your wants and needs. But I think also if there's a level of honesty, you start to create trust. Meaning, if I really want a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, but we only have 3 2s, okay, this maybe isn't the place for you. We'll talk through some objections around that. But if it really is about we can't fit into a 3-2, okay, well, I have a sister community down the street that can help you.
Yes.
And you're really taking care of that person's needs, and ensuring that they're renting with your
Good point.
with your brand or with your overall community structure, not just one.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, because, back in our day when we were leasing here for Mark Taylor, or I was training people to lease, we wanted, I lost my train of thought a little bit.
Well, you couldn't train me to lease, so I got promoted.
We tried to get you out of that as quickly as possible. Get them behind a computer, start getting month-end reports done. Let's make that happen. Kris, I can't say thank you enough. I know John feels the same way. I'm sure he'll make mention, but what you have done for our industry, so needed, so worthwhile, just the value across all of our property management companies.
Thank you.
Specific to the members within the AMA. I don't know where we'd be without you.
Oh, thank you. I did remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, please.
I haven't seen, we would coach our teams to be a team. And if a prospect came in, then several people in the team would be talking to that prospect, or along the way, you'd introduce the maintenance team,
Oh, even better.
We haven't seen that for years, for a good few years. Just recently, I'm starting to see some shops where the manager is coming out, introducing themselves or adding to the conversation. And I think that that's so important. And again, it really sells the brand and who our clients are.
There's the
And
value.
that is so important because, again, people are looking more than just the sticks and bricks. They're looking for that personality and that engagement, the experience.
I've always, like, in a traditional leasing model, which, that still exists today, that will change. But I think we should remove all of the chairs, right?
Oh, make
I'm
people
with
stand?
you.
Because people come in and
Yes.
I'm just going to keep typing. I'm the assistant manager. I'm gonna act like I'm on the phone. No, you should be up. Like, let's go right there. Right?
You do
Immediately.
remember some of my training.
Absolutely.
You do
Like,
remember. I was the first thing I'd
make
say
them
is
the
take
most
that
important
chair
person in the
away.
room.
I love it.
Take the
I
chair
love
away.
it. Here we go. Here we go.
But I think another big point to bring up is that it's more than just the performance. Today, I think because of the automation, we have to look at the product and our curb appeal for both
Yeah.
people, our image, and our buildings more than we ever did before. Because we don't have that opportunity to have the personal touch as often as we did in the past. Think about it. If a prospect has done everything online and they get to a community and they drive up and they see something that's not quite right, and they walk in the leasing office and they weren't greeted right away, and maybe the leasing consultant isn't quite as polished as they should be.
Turns them off.
Yeah. They're just now looking for things along the way that are going to go wrong, not looking for this is, my
I
next
made a good
home.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, again, that quality assurance and really making sure that we look the part, both our people and building is a big part of going forward, especially with
Great point.
self-guided tours.
Great point. Before John and I ask you what you're grateful for today, I failed to share business observations is a family affair as well.
Well, yes and no. My mom is my business partner, and we own the company 50-50. My daughter, who's very talented, works for us, but it is not a family business. It's just three very strong, talented women that enjoy working together.
Well, there's nothing
just happen
better
to be
than,
related.
than
Yeah,
seeing
right.
The best part is when we have our events through the AMA or anything just throughout the industry, seeing those three generation of ladies just leading the way. Awesome.
Thank you. It's really
Awesome.
It's an interesting perspective when we're talking about performance and really analyzing people, because we do have the three generations. You'd think that it's the older generation that wants that people first, but not in our case. It's Kylie. She wants that people. She wants to understand and build that trust before the automation. So
She's a
again,
rock star.
It's really just getting to know your prospect.
She's a rock star. All right, we're going to hit you up. What are you grateful for today, Kris? Or do you want John to go first? You tell me. You have the right.
Well, not only am I grateful for both of you and Mark Taylor, but I'm grateful for those little wins that we forget to, celebrate along the way that really create that major win.
That's awesome. JC?
Yeah, that's what my executive coach always says. You got to celebrate wins. I'm so bad at it; it's in my calendar because I just want to get on to the next thing. I'm
do it
grateful
all the time.
I'm grateful for our relationship. I think looking back 20 plus years, it's really important to never burn bridges, to really support those that come into your life. Relationships stretch and grow and change and all of those things. But I really appreciate our time together at Mark Taylor before current. And now I'm just really grateful for your success and your impact on the industry. And I know it's going to continue and it'll flourish. And when Kylie takes over and you make sure you keep a percentage of that ownership as she flourishes, things will be great.
No, thank you. I'm grateful for you too, John.
Kris, keep guiding us, keep teaching us, keep coaching us. We need you. We love you. Can't say thank you enough. I'm going to go off outside of the industry because I just thought of something. You just talked about.
Any chance I can get you to train Adam for the next 45 minutes?
Please, I'm going to need help. I'm going to need help. I want to give a shout out to my son's flag football coach. His name is Reese Winters. Thank you, Coach. He knows that his mom and I, of course, work full-time jobs. Practice starts a little bit early since it's the winter months still, and the sun doesn't stay up as long as, of course, 9 o'clock at night in the summer months. And he just offers to pick up our son to take him to and from practice. I just wanted to say, talking about good people, never asked him, never was a thought to ask him. He just offered it. Those are the people, just like at Business Observations, just kind of leading the way for us. Thank you again, Coach.
Hey, Reese, it sounds like there's going to be a nice fat gas card coming your way from
There it is.
Mr. Greco.
There it is.
So enjoy that.
Thank you. Kris, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
John,
you. It's been a
feeling
pleasure.
good?
Feeling good, buddy.
Ready to go?
Let's go.
Rise and grind.
Rise and grind, baby.
Thank you again, Kris. Thanks for joining us. Multifamily Forward, presented by Mark Taylor Consulting.